The Lunaverse, Episode 4, Griffon Over the Line, by Emeral bookwise. Chapter 1, The Lazy Jerk. And so, after that, the great and powerful Trixie will move on to card tricks, followed by... A very bored, jasmine-colored pegasus sat at a cafe by Ponyville Park, staring somewhat blankly at the table at her perpetually overdressed unicorn friend, as she yammered on and on about some upcoming performance she was planning. Casting her gaze about the pavilion, Raindrops observed that most of the tables were empty. It was well enough past high noon that there was even an angled tarp in place to shield the patrons from the sun as it proceeded its descent. Yet, it seemed that even in these months later, most ponies were still slow to come out of their midday seclusions, unwilling to take any chances. Now, for the first time since the meal began, Raindrops considered if she should have done the same. Returning her gaze to the plate in front of her, the Pegasus sighed as she poked absently at the food, though she thought describing it as food was rather generous, having made what should have been the rather obvious mistake of letting her companion order for the both of them. It had seemed reasonable enough at the time, and Trixie was paying. Plus, Raindrops could scarcely interpret the fanciful script on the menu, if it had been written in Equestria in the first place. She should have still known better, given the unicorn's rather unique taste. This, of course, had done nothing to improve Raindrop's mood for today. Remind me again, why is it that you had to get me to be the one to go over all of this with you? She interrupted the azure and coated mare, who had just gone into something about boxes and sawing ponies in half. Is that not plainly obvious? Trixie replied, in that tone which carried just the barest trace of haughtiness, not quite enough to make it sound like she was actually talking down to any pony, but enough to make one feel almost justified slapping her upside the head anyway. I need some pony to give me completely honest feedback on the routine, and as such as you would seem to be the most natural choice considering... She trailed off, letting the basic truth of the matter go unsaid. Besides, Lyra still isn't much for talking to me. Yeah, I get all that. Sighed Raindrops with exasperation, purposely trying to ignore that Trixie had just bluntly admitted to only taking her as a second choice. But it's not like I've got much of an idea what would make a good performance in the first place. Trixie chuckled with distinctive trill of hers. But don't you see, that's exactly what makes you an ideal sounding board. Staging such a good performance isn't science, but pure art. It's not about technical requirements, but the emotional response of the audience. Raindrops gave Trixie a half-cocked sideways glance. Don't know if you noticed, but emotional responses aren't exactly my strong suit. She added in a mutter. Not the good kind, at least. Oh, stop glowering. What's got you in such a sour mood today, anyway? I hope you still aren't brewing over the whole winter wrap-up, miss. You just hardly touched your food. Gee, I wonder why. She thought to herself as she gave another glance at the so-called food in front of her. Still, as much as she hated to admit it, Trixie had a point that it would be unfair to try to pin all the blame on this disappointment of a meal. I lived in Ponyville long enough to have seen worse winter wrap-ups. As bad as this year may have been, last year was even worse, but it is work-related. You see, Rainbow Dad says, oh, please, Trixie cut in. That's hardly anything new, now, is it? Well, yeah, but it's worse than usual. She blew off her entire shift yesterday. Not just got a late start, not just rushed in through work and then take the rest of the day off, but outright skipped the whole shift. Then this morning, her rent was abruptly cut with a tut-tut-tut. You can worry about that on your own time. Now then, where was Trixie? Oh, yes. Trixie reassumed her spiel, but in short order her less enthusiastic audience was no longer listening. Not just because the unicorn was being invariably dismissive again, but because Raindrops' attention was instead focusing solely on the errant cloud that was slowly drifting by overhead. A cloud sporting a rather distinctive multicolored hued tail. As she stood from her seat, spreading her wings, Raindrops made no attempt to excuse herself, so she focused on her goal as she ascended. She hardly even noticed as Trixie cried out a protest. No, she had more important matters to attend as she set her eyes fixedly on Ponyville's lead weather mare, surprisingly engaged in her second favorite pastime, napping. Rainbow Dash! She bellowed. So, this is where you've been hiding. It's bad enough when you leave the rest of us to cover your lazy flank, but this cloud was supposed to be on the south side of town an hour ago! The lazy reclining Pegasus waved a forehoof in dismissive announcement, not even bothered to opening her eyes as she yawned out a response. Yeah. I'll get right on that as soon as I finish getting another few links. Raindrops eyed her quarry coldly and let out a brief snort. Rainbow Dash opened a single eye and sighed. You're not going to drop this, are you? A beat passed as neither Pegasus said a word or made a motion until, Fine! She groaned, just rolling off the cloud, catching herself mid-free fall before slowly flapping her way back up as he rubbed to sleep for her magenta eyes. But you have to help me move it. For just another moment, Raindrop spoke. It was hardly like her boss to ask for assistance, especially for a task so trivial as moving a single cloud. No doubt she was getting grumpy from having her nap disturbed. Still, if it meant getting things back on schedule, and hopefully getting the weather manager back onto patrol station for the rest of the afternoon, it would be worth the minor trouble. With a shrug and only the barest hint of a glower, Raindrops flew over. She placed each of her forehooves against the cloud, not even waiting for Rainbow Dash to do the same. She knew all too well what the definition of help was expected, and had no patience for playing games at the moment. No sooner had she started to push the cloud when a pair of claws burst out, grabbing a hold of each of her hooves. Then before Raindrops had time to figure out what was happening, a sharp beaked maw burst forth and let out a deafening roar to her face. My little pony, ah, my little pony, friendship never meant that much to me, my little pony. But now you're all here, and now I can see stormy weather, a loss to share, a musical bond, with love and care, teaching laughter, it's an easy feat, and magic makes it all complete. You have my little ponies. How did I ever make so many true friends? Created by Rainbow Double Dash. It can happen only on the Hub. And no, I'm not dissing the joke, just because the Hub family now is taking the Discovery family. This joke will still continue on as only on the Hub. Why? Because in the Lunaverse, the Hub stays. Thank you. Chapter 2. The Reckless Jerk. To all the world, it looked as Raindrops had been shocked into a catatonic state, the only medicine left in her body being the steady wing beats holding her aloft. In actuality, she was counting slowly backwards from 10 under her breath, while slightly offering up a prayer that the moon might grant her the patience to not strangle the pair of guffawing idiots rolling on the cloud in front of her. As her countdown reached the number 4, she pegged her odds of self-restraint about 50-50. As Rainbow Dash and her Griffin cohort continued to laugh, Raindrops stalked over toward them, an impressive display considering she was still hovering a few dozen feet in the air. Whoa, Dash, I think your friend here might be mad, came the nonchalant voice of the Griffin. Raindrops fumed as she locked eyes with the half-eagle, half-lion. Oh, we've already left mad behind. Try furious, she answered in a forcibly calm tone. Lighten up, Raindrops, sighed Rainbow Dash as she hopped from her perch and glided between the two. It was just a joke. Dash let out a few chuckles as he smiled, but Raindrops stared back sternly. Anyhow, Drops, I'd like you to meet my Griffin friend, Gilda. Raindrops interrupted family. Ah, you heard me. The Griffins responded with a somewhat sarcastic-sounding croon as he stroked her talon through the loose feathers atop her head. I'm flattered. After the fuss Rarity was making this morning, I'm sure every pony in town has heard of you. Yeah, that was pretty funny, chuckled Rainbow Dash. Don't know how she figured it out it was us, though. Given that you showed up with your friend here at her petite last night, just before closing, professing that you had finally given in to your marriage desires, and were ready to let Rarity give you a full-fashion makeover, which, of course, she immediately dropped everything to do, with how she always fancied what she could do with all these colors of yours. Then, at the near crack of dawn, she comes storming through the downtown streets, wrapped head to toe in a trench coat and scarf, practically beating down the spa door to demand an emergency full-body treatment. What did you two do to her anyway? Nothing much. Just replaced her fancy body wash with grape jelly. Dash snickered. And that fashion snob deserved to get knocked down a peg or two anyway, especially after what she put me through when I was distracting her so Gilda could make the switch. I was stuck there for over an hour trying on all her dresses. Gilda seemed to make quite the effort of surpassing her new set of her own snickers and being reminded of her friend's distress. Oh, but I thought they made you look quite dashing. With that, she broke into a full fit of uncontrolled laughter. Yeah, moaned the multi-hued pegasus. Laugh it up before I shut you up. The image of her boss, dressed up in all defiance that Carousel Boutique had to offer, briefly made Raindrops forget just how angry she was trying to be. The accompanying image of the shop's proprietor staring into her bathroom mirror, shocked horror plastered on her face at the sight of her normally pristine coat, stained with thick purple patches, was almost distracting. Okay, maybe. But the rest of the town deserved to have to put up with 2 hours of whining at a pit so intense that is there no pony within a 3-block radius could sleep in? Nah, a little lost sleep never hurt no pony. Raindrops blinked her as her brain struggled to process how Das, of all ponies, could say that with a straight face. Right. Well, now that I've found you, I think it's about time I got you back to the patrol station so you can start making up that shift you missed yesterday. About that, Das started in a disturbingly calm tone. See, the way I figure it, I've got about 3 days of vacation time saved up, so I was planning on just taking the rest of the day and tomorrow off, then float my weekend over to the break the day after. That'll see me through the end of Gilda's visit. Raindrops could already feel the veins in her forehead beginning to break again. You're supposed to clear schedule changes like that a full week in advance, preferably 2! She forced out between quietly clenched teeth. I did! She answered, with the most obnoxious grin imaginable plastered across her face. I got full approval from the weather captain herself. Gilda snickered. The sound of her own heartbeat echoed repeatedly through Raindrops' head. Her eyes narrowed, a rage clearly building to a boil. Rising up and into her throat, she bellowed, You know that's not how things work when you are the weather captain! Yeah, Das droned on as he waved out the technicality. Take it up with the weather captain when she gets back from her vacation. And with that, she was off, quick as her namesake. Gilda was close behind, but twisted in midair for a single flap to offer up a mock salute. See you later, Dripsy! Raindrops repeated her earlier countdown, though this time giving herself significantly worse than the 50-50 odds of her breaking first. She was broken from her exercise in self-restraint when she reached number 3. Hey, if you're quite done up there, how do you think you could come back down so I can finish going over the routine? Trixie called out with a bellow. Are you serious? Quite. I need to make sure everything is as exciting as possible. Raindrops simply stared for a beat, then let down in a huff. Wait! Why don't you just try throwing a knife at somebody's face? With that, she flew off to the Roger patrol station to see just how much shift juggling Rainbow's impromptu vacation was going to require, while she muttered to herself, I know that would excite me right about now. What Raindrops never saw was Trixie raise a hoof to her chin in contemplation. That might just work. Ponyville Elementary. Young students sat at their desk in front of trays of sopping sticky goo and strips of thinly sliced paper. At the front of the room placed a plum-colored mare, bearing a trio of smiling flowers on her flank, currently engaged in a lecture on the finer points of papier-mâché. As Miss Cheerily turned to the blackboard to write out the latest keyword for her class, Rainbow Dash poked her head up outside the window, a straw held between her hooves that she immediately blew before ducking it back out of sight. The wad of white paper flew through the air, striking a young colt on the back of the neck. Suddenly jerked to full alertness, the colt turned his head, only to see one of his classmates lazily running a single strip of paper back and forth on a tray of glue. Not to be taken for a pushover, the colt grabbed one of his own strips of paper, sucked it in the tray, crumpled it up, and hurled it at his presumed assailant. The classmate was struck across the face. He glared in stunned surprise at the snickering colt in front of him, then proceeded to return the favor. A quick dodge through, and the wads instead stuck to filly beyond. By the time Cheerily turned back around, the classroom was a flurry of commotion, as fillies and colts flung their surprise of arts and crafts lesson at each other. That is enough of that, my little ponies. Settle down. She timed, with only the barest hint of frustrated harshness, as she ducked the rugged projectile. When the class showed no signs of heeding the request, she repeated with a somewhat forced authority, Ahem! That's quite enough now. We've all had our fun, but... She was cut off as another rogue and rather large wad of gooey paper that she wasn't fast enough for was abruptly plastered across her face. With a slow and deliberate motion, the teacher reached up with a single hoof, clearing away the mess and revealing eyes that weren't nearly so infinitely as patient as usual. A pair of birds were happily chirping in a tree outside the schoolhouse when I said that's enough! A sea-green unicorn mare made to enter a candy shop when she suddenly found herself spun about in a whirl as a flood of colors whizzed past her. She staggered about, her eyes still spinning in the sockets when wham! Something large, brown, and feathery slammed into her. Hey! What's where I'm flying, why don't ya? A rather gruff and irritated voice called it too as it sped away. Lyra picked herself off the ground, dazed and dizzy, as she thought to herself how some rude ponies, whatever that thing had just been, could be. Dusting herself off as she regained her bearings, Lyra proceeded about her oriental business as she stepped through the open door. Hey, Bonbon, I was wondering. Lyra's golden eyes scanned the room. 2 customers had just left, but the musician could see no sign of the shop's cream-colored owner. Up here, she heard the most familiar voice call out, though it lacked any of its usual honey. The unicorn's eyes slowly raised up. Where her stunned astonishment she saw Bonbon. The mare's curly blue and pink locks permeated by some sticky substance, plastering her to the ceiling. How did you? Don't ask, came the Earth Pony's indignant reply. Now, why don't you stop staring slack-jawed and use some of that fancy magic to get me down? I have some things I want to talk about Bonbon being stuck to walls, but that's a conflict for another day. The gray-colored mail mare cantered merrily down her route in a bright blue uniform with satchel stuff full of leather slung over her sides. Her bright yellow eyes roamed about her surroundings, seeming to take in everything but the path directly in front of her. Yet she never faltered a step. She came to a stop and opened the mailbox in front of her, but before she could reach into her bag, her eyes seemed to roll into a focused forward alignment as her brows furrowed in curiosity. She reached into the box and pulled it from a small hive. Its tiny occupants buzzed about her outstretched hoof, but none seemed to make a motion to sing the gentle mare. Oh, I love it when ponies leave me gifts, she smiled, and Dinky will be so glad to have some fresh honey to go with dinner tonight. The Pegasus then stretched out a single wing and balanced the hive tightly atop it. Then she proceeded to finish delivering the kind pony's mail. Then, before returning to her route, in a nearby tree sat a rather disappointed and beguiled Griffin alongside her Pegasus cohort. See? I told you there was no point in trying to prank Derpy, Dash said with an exasperated sigh. That mare is just too vapid to realize what's going on. Gilda shrugged. Yeah, I guess so. Come on, let's go see if we can find some actual fun. And with that, the pair flew off to their next victim. Ditsy Doo merely continued down the road, one eye fixed ahead, while the other tracked a pair of unaware would-be pranksters as they flew away. Thanks again for helping me get today's stock to the market, said the golden-coated Earth Pony mare with the curly orange mane. Raindrops was happy enough to help her friend retrieve a supply of vegetables. Carrot Top had even promised her a few of her signature namesakes as compensation. Not that such a reward was strictly necessary, but after the less than satisfactory meals he had yesterday in exchange for helping a friend, the Pegasus found it reassuring that she actually gets something edible this time. As the pair approached the shed where Carrot Top stored her goods, Raindrop's hoof sunk into a mud puddle. Letting it back up to stare briefly with a furrowed brow, she then slowly craned her head, eyes scanning left and right across the cloudless sky. Without even having given it much thought, the exasperated weather mare had spread her wings wide, feeling the air around her. There was a rather unusual amount of humidity in the immediate area. But why? Her eyes drifted back down to the ground, where more patches of mud dotted the surrounding path, growing ever more concentrated as one approached the— Wait! Carrot Top! Don't open the— The warning came too late. No sooner than when had the farmer began to lift the latch than the shed's doors flung open, drowning the two mare in a sudden torrent of water. Moments later, as the two came to their senses some dozen feet where they had been standing, coughing up water and thoroughly coated in the freshly made muddy slurry that was now all around them, a steady sound came to their ears, that of raucous and guffawing laughter. Carrot Top hardly seemed to notice the staring about in dazed confusion, but Raindrops already had her eyes focused sharply at the base of a nearby tree, just outside of the flood's path. Raindrops rose, her eyes narrowed and full of vengeance. She began to stomp her way over to the cameras, teaching a rather harsh lesson, only to slip and fall face first into the mud, sliding to a halt not too far from her intended quarry. Though caked in mud, her eyes contained no less fury as she gazed up at the source of her ire. Without even rising again, she hissed, "You are so dead, Rainbow Dash!" Rainbow Dash wheezed a bit as he fought to choke out a reply through her fits of laughter. "Gee, Dross, it's not like I meant to prank you twice. Even I know not to take a joke that far." Raindrop's eyes twitched as he finally managed to get her hose steadily beneath her. That might have been just the closest thing she had ever heard from Rainbow Dash that even remotely resembled an honest and sincere apology. And it was directed at her, not at Carrot Top, to whom he had relentlessly inflicted who knows how much property damage while nearly drowning the poor mare in the process. No, instead, it was directed at Raindrops, who received no more than a brief fight the day before, in a little bit of accidental waterlogging due to nothing more than her proximity due to the true victim on all this. It was in that moment she realized just how silly yesterday's anger at the pair had been. This was true fury, and now she was about to unload it all over their sorry flanks. Rainbow Dash seemed to remain oblivious of the erupting inferno building within the Jasmine Pegasus. Gilda, however, seemed to have a better clue of what was about to go down. Her eyes locked briefly with Raindrop's own. The two glared defiantly, as if each was daring the other to make the first move until, Dash, the Griffin squeaked as he tapped her cohort's shoulder. "I think we best beat Wing before things get ugly." The Pegasus speedster seemed to only stare confusedly at her Griffin friend, until finally turning to take note of the expression chiseled onto Raindrop's face. She gulped. "Well, then, guess we'll just, bite!" The pair of pranksters were off in a flash, barely more than a brown blur and a chromatic streak, as they darted rapidly about the sky. They probably thought themselves to be cleverly sinking off any would-be pursuit. They clearly did not understand the nature of the fury they had brought upon themselves. With a force that seemed to make the very earth tremble, Raindrops leapt into the air. She knows she could never keep pace with the rapidly fleeing speedsters, but she also knew she didn't have to. Sooner or later they'd get tired, or bored, then they would sit down to rest. Probably start planning their next act of vandalism disguised as humor, and that would be when Raindrops would pounce. No, she didn't need to keep pace, just fly true and steady, never letting the zigzagging pair out of sight. So let them run. It'll only make them all the easier to handle when I catch them, she thought as fizzes of violence danced in her head. "Wait!" she heard Carrot Top call out from below. The now embodiment of righteous fury slowed her ascent, but kept her eyes focused on the rapidly fleeing pranksters. "No! Don't you dare try to talk me out of this!" she shouted. "Those two have been asking for this, and it's about time someone taught them a lesson!" "It's not that," came the reply. "I need your help right now. If we don't get this mess dried out, my whole stock will be ruined." Raindrops was torn. As she lived now, she could keep sight of her quarry until the pair eventually sat down for a breather. But was any pain back, no matter how much they deserved, worth their friend's livelihood? True, it was the thoughtless prank that had caused this particular crisis in the first place. But what kind of friend would Raindrops be if she left while there was still a chance to salvage the situation? "Fine!" she let out with an exasperated sigh as she turned and descended back to the ground. She gave one glance over her shoulder as the pair streaks vanished into distant specks. Raindrops whispered to herself in a muttered growl. "You can run, Rainbow Dash, but you can't hide." Chapter 3. The Inconsiderate Jerk. The office of the official representative of the Night Court, wherein resided the official representative of the Night Court and personal protege of Princess Luna herself. Trixie was a very important pony who spent every moment making every very important decisions that affected the lives of each and every citizen of Ponyville. Or at least that's how it was supposed to work. In reality, most of her job involved being little more than a glorified paper pusher. Trixie despised paperwork, as it could be attested by the rather large pile sitting to the side of her desk that she was trying very hard to ignore. The very, very bored mare sat slouched over her desk. Azure coat lay bereaved of its usual garb, her head resting lazily sideways against the cool wooden surface, and horn aglow in an equally lazy aurora as she levitated a paddle ball. One by one she counted out the steady, rhythmic beats. her glassy gaze barely alert enough to track the ball as it stretched to the limits of its tether and rebounded, only to be sent sailing forth again by the next strike of the paddle. She supposed that as she was going to neglect her official duties for the afternoon, she should at least be using this time to prepare for her upcoming performance. But she found herself far too bored to work up the motivation. Besides, without so much as an audience of one to amaze, what would be the point? It was at that moment she saw ripples spread rhythmically from the center of the glass of water on her desk. Then, just as she lifted her head to ponder the meaning of this as she heard it, the heavy thud, 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 as though some great beast from the depths of every furry forest appearance. Finally, with a resounding crash, her office door was flung open, revealing not some hideous monster, though Trixie might as well have preferred such. No, instead, her eyes beheld a sight of abject terror, second only to the blazing queen of the sun herself, or perhaps that should be the other way around. Before Trixie stood her good friend and fellow helmet of harmony, Raindrops, eyes full of murderous fury. "Trixie! We need to have a serious talk!" "What? I've been in my office all day. Whoever thought you saw? It wasn't Trixie!" blurted the unicorn in a barely coherent panic. With that, the Pegasus' seething rays seemed to abate, replaced by puzzled confusion. "Huh?" Trixie let out a sigh of relief as he wiped out her brow. "Oh, thank merciful Luna, you're not here for me." Raindrops cocked her head slightly, with a raised eyebrow before pressing. "Why would I be?" No reason." Trixie stammered, while purposely averting her gaze. "Forget I even brought it up." "Right, I will. This time!" said the Pegasus, with the barest edge of an underlying threat. "You're lucky I have bigger cakes to bake." "So, what exactly is this about, then?" "Oh, come on!" Raindrops vented. "You have got to have heard about all the chaos Rainbow Dash and that Griffin friend of hers has been causing." "Of course I heard, but I don't see why you're storming in here like you expect me to do anything about it." Trixie then made a point, using her magic, to shuffle through some of the paperwork on her desk as though to remind her friend she had proper, official duties to attend. Letting her eyes read, or at least skimmed, over a random document, she then continued in an officiatory tone. "Pranks and a petty vandalism are rather beneath the Night Court's jurisdictional interests. Just leave it to the mayor or such." "Only problem with that is, as usual, the mayor doesn't seem to want to do a damn thing about it," fumed the Pegasus as she rolled her eyes. "I swear, Rainbow Dash is the only pony whose continuing job security I don't understand." Never taking her eyes off the document, still not having much clue what it said, Trixie again tried to make her position in the matter clear. "I still don't see what you expect me to do about it. My job only lets me break ties in the city council and such, not overrule mayoral decisions." "Well, Gilda's a griffin. Surely that's got to make this big enough to concern the Night Court." "So what?" Trixie asked as she set down her papers and raised an eyebrow. "You expect me to contact the Griffin ambassador and have her kicked out of Equestria?" "Sounds like a good plan to me, especially if I get to do the kicking." Raindrops punctuated this by making a bucking motion. "Unfortunately, it's not so simple," the unicorn sighed as she shook her head. "Sort of capital offense, it would take weeks for that kind of paperwork to go through. And from what I've heard, this Gilda is only staying through to the end of tomorrow. Besides, the Griffins would only laugh off such a request made over only what little she has seen to actually done." "Little!" "They almost ruined all of Carrot Top's leftover winter surplus, and it's still weeks until the first of her early spring harvest will be ready for market." Trixie gave a deep frown at this revelation. "Be that it may, it is still nothing the Griffins would make a fuss over." "Why in the gates of Tartarus not?" "The harbor! The harbor!" cried a pale earth pony with a rose-colored mane and matching cutie mark. "This is awful!" wailed a pink earth pony whose blonde mane was held in place by a lily that matched her own cutie mark. "A disaster! A horrible, horrible disaster!" concluded a third earth pony with a lime-colored mane and sporting another flower-themed cutie mark. The object of the trio's distress was fenced in and immediately maintained flower garden. More specifically, it was one particular flower in that garden. Or to be even more precise, it was what currently sat atop that flower. A single, solitary caterpillar was munching on the petals. Blissfully unaware of the panic, it was enticing.
Quick! I need to get it off before it lays any eggs! Wait, caterpillars aren't too young to lay eggs. That's not important. If I still have brothers and sisters waiting to hatch, we have to check every flower. Stat!
As the three mares began to run out in utter a mounting panic, they were served by a pair of watchful eyes from a nearby rooftop. Gilda scratched her head.
So, that's it?
Sitting next to her, Rainbow Dash shrugged. Yeah. I guess those three are a little on the easy side. Maybe we should try something a bit more exciting. Then smiled and pointed to the sky. What last in that cloud is an egg! The griffin's response was a little more than a ready stance before Dash gave a quick 3 count and they were off. As the pair of speedsters rocketed through the base to emerge on the other side, Rainbow struck a dramatic pose and gave a celebratory cry.
Yes! Rainbow Dash wins again, and the crowd goes wild! Woo!
She then gloated, proceeded to cup her host to the side of her mouth, and intimidated a roar, replying almost,
Wow! Way to go, Dash! We love you, Rainbow!
Gilda gave it dismissively.
It's alright. I was way ahead. No way! I'm the fastest flyer in all Equestria.
Insisted Rainbow with a pointed stare as he slipped a hoof through the air, holding an imaginary figure of himself in flight.
Too bad for you, I ain't no Pegasus,
came the griffin's reply as he set herself down on top of the cloud.
You might be the fastest flyer in this little Nowheresville, but compared to me, you might as well be in slow motion.
She then emphasized her point by imitating Dash's gesture, only far more slowly. The Pegasus sat down directly opposite her rival and made fierce eye contact.
You're the one who's slow-mo, and if there was any pony else here to keep you honest, I could prove it. Hey! I'm the most honest griffin in town! Gilda,
Rainbow began in questioning tone before she tilted her head.
You're the only griffin in town. My point exactly,
she said with a wide grin. The two then reclined on the cloud and laughed off the aftermath of their friendly quarrel.
All right, I get it. No help from the Griffin Empires.
Raindrops rubbed her temples, trying to make sure her head wouldn't explode from the social-political iniquities Tracy had just gone over for what felt like the past few days.
There's still gotta be something I could do about this. We just can't let them get away with this. If I hadn't been there to help fast dry everything, Carrot Top would have gone bankrupt.
Trixie sighed.
Is it really all that bad? First off, unless she let the element get better of her, Carrot Top would still have plenty of reward money left over from our mutual heroics to tide her over the worst of this.
Well, yeah, but she should have had to use that to clean up Rainbow Dash's mess.
You didn't wait for me to finish, scolded the Unicorn. Second, it seems one of the better things my predecessor did with his time in this office was to have Rainbow Dash officially declassified as an untamable force in nature. So, as it turns out, any and all damages she causes, whether intentionally from pranks or accidental while training, qualify for disaster relief funding as per the Equestrian Environmental Defense Act of 174.
Tracy was quite proud of her ability to convey a degree of expertise on the subject. Even if technicalities, he didn't know that little detail until Terry had come to file a claim for the cleanup costs at the schoolhouse. She wasn't even sure where the school teacher picked up such frequently encyclopedic knowledge of the equestrian legal code, but it certainly came in handy sometimes. Raindrops, though, was merely flabbergasted.
What? Really?
How does that even— Never mind! I think I've heard enough legal and political technicalities for one day. Still, this has got to be some pretty serious level of damage. I mean, it's not just Carrot Top. Rainbow Dash and Gilda have practically been turning the whole town upside down.
Actually, I've been over the books, and apparently Rainbow Dash quite caused some property damage that time she volunteered to help Buttercry with the annual bunny census.
The bit of info Tracy could actually take full credit for. The event happened before she had even come to Ponyville, but she ran across it in the files while compiling her report to the Bureau of Animal Affairs in regards to all the boroughs that got flooded during winter wrap-up.
Fluttershy. Beg pardon?
Trixie queried as she was sinking down for prideful reverie. Her name, Raindrop stressed. The Pegasus that normally handles all those overly time-consuming animal surveys. It's Fluttershy.
Whatever.
It told the Unicorn in a dismissive rap.
My point is, all of this is nothing. Just one more crazy week in the craziness capital of Equestria. Come next week, where there'll be some other crazy activity or some zany antics, and every pony will forget all about this like it never even happened.
Raindrops now was thoroughly incensed and completely fed up with Trixie's continued unwillingness to take this matter seriously. You know what? Fine! I knew it'd be a mistake coming here. You aren't going to help, then I'll just do what I should have done in the first place and handle things personally! With that, the pegasus stormed out of Trixie's office, nearly slamming her hooves through the floorboards as she marched. She paused on her way out, only long enough to slam the door behind her, so hard it rattled its hinges. Rainbow Dash yawned while reclining on the cloud, then snapped her eyes open as she lifted her hooves.
Hey, you think you can fail at this trick?
The lounging Griffin raised her head from her folded arms.
In my sleep,
she declared, with a somewhat lazy boast.
But how about we try another prank first, before I embarrass you again?
I don't know, G, replied Rainbow as she scratched the back of her mane.
I think this town just might be about pranked out by now. So, we go out of town. I still have this timid little thing in a cottage by the Everfree.
The Griffin smiled with conspiratorial anticipation as he rubbed the palms of her talons together.
Bet you we could scare her real good. Yeah, we could. Wait!
Jess's enthusiasm quickly drained as he realized.
You don't mean Fluttershy. How should I know? All the ponies look the same to me. Each as lame as the next.
Then guessing herself, she hastily added with a clenched grin.
Except you, Dash. You're special. Don't I know it?
Being the ego-stoked Pegasus as he struck a confident pose, a single hoof pointed to her own chest, seemingly to have focused solely on the flowery and oblivious to Gilda's carelessly aimed insult.
Right. So, what about the prank?
The pride seemed to drain from Rainbow's face as uncertainty filled the Pegasus' eyes.
I don't know. Forsyth's a pretty fragile thing under the best of circumstances. Besides, I thought we were done with Easy. Nothing wrong with Easy, as long as it ain't boring.
I don't think it would be such a good...
Oh, come on, Dash! I swear that butterball looks like she'd be scared of her own shadow. We could probably get her to literally jump out of her own skin. Just imagine that I said no! Fluttershy's off limits, and that's final!
Silence hung in the air from the outbursts' aftermath before finally...
Oh, I get it. You're a sweetheart.
The Griffin battered her eyelashes as he made the closest approximately her beak could make to a pucker. Then slightly lowered her elbow her companion in the ribs, while wagging her brows as he added.
Never knew you swung that way, Dash! Wait, what? No, it's not like that, Dash stammered defensively,
anger rising to her cheeks as she shoved Gilda away.
We just go back a long way, and...
Rainbow struggled to find the words to explain to the coolest friend why she was being so protective of such a decidedly uncool pony. I'm not going to make a Flutterdash ship joke. I refuse on the grounds of my own dignity. Gilda's eyes went wide just before a baleful grin spread across her face.
Well, I was only joking there, but are you like so totally crushing on her?
Just drop it, groaned the Pegasus as he looked away in a huff. The Griffin took a purposely deep breath before proceeding to muscly sing,
Jessie and her girlfriend sitting in the tree. Kiss. Ow!
The fullest tease was cut off abruptly by a lightning-fast hook jab in the arm. I said, drop it! As Gilda tried to rub the pain out of her now aching biceps, she gave Dash an appraising glare. A brief tension hung in the air, but the Griffin relaxed as he sighed. Fine, it's dropped.
So, what now?
Rainbow rubbed her chin and thought,
I got it!
There's still at least one good prank left in all this, if boy does she ever deserve it. Raindrops glowered as he trudged along the street, kicking the occasional pebble across her path. Normally, at least one of the genial residents of Ponyville might try to console a pony in such a foul mood. But all that seemed to give Rainbow Drops a wide berth. Even Pinky. She wasn't happy she earned something of a reputation that rightfully described consistency, but right now, she appreciated it. When she held the representative's residency, she had been ready to rush off, to bring all her pent-up frustrations out on Rainbow Dash and that so-called Griffin friend of hers. As her search for the pranksters had dragged on, though, she had taken time to think. Were her friends right? Was she really just taking the matter too personally? Sure, Trixie might be dismissing it all because she hadn't been victimized, But even Carrot Top told Raindrops not to ask too harshly. And Trixie had been somewhat correct. Edges like this were regrettably all too common in Ponyville. Raindrops had lived through worse before, and would probably still see worse in the future. So why should she treat this time any different? Besides, it was only one more day. Still, she came to the halt, and looked to the sky, and let out a roar of pure frustration. The citizens around her paused in their daily routines to take note, but quickly enough to resume minding their own business. Raindrops was about to continue with her brooding march when she heard a shout calling to her. Turning to find the source, she saw Trixie rushing down the street to her, a box levitated alongside the unicorn. The unicorn slowed to a halt as he approached and painfully spoke.
Raindrops, there you are. This is awful, dreadfully awful. I don't know how she did it, but...
Trixie was cut off by her own need to hack and wheeze as she fought to catch her breath.
What happened? Are you okay? What's with the box? No, I am most certainly not okay. As for the box, well, just see for yourself.
As Trixie used her magic to open the box and levitate out its contents, Raindrops had to suppress a fit of laughter. There, hanging in the air in front of her, was the great and powerful Trixie's hat and cape. Except instead of their usual violet shade, they were now each a tie-dyed rainbow.
I don't know how she got a hold of them, but when my hat and cape were delivered from the cleaners, they were like this!
Well, that certainly looks like about a blatant calling card as I can imagine. Funny though, I didn't know the clearance did delivery.
Nor did I. When I discovered this heinous act, my first suspicion was that Rainbow Dash had simply tricked the cleaners into handing over my garments before delivering them to herself. But unless she has the ability to change her mane purple, coat orange, and magically shrink to about half her size, it certainly wasn't her who came knocking at my door.
Well, that explains everything. This is definitely Dash's work.
What? You mean she really can?
Trixie trailed off as she tried to process the half-interpreted revelation. Then, rapidly shook her head as if to manually clear her and restore focus.
Never mind. Not important. What matters now is that I am finally convinced that something must be done about this situation.
Whatever happened to weighing it all out? Besides, can't you just magic your clothes back to normal?
That was before these hooligans made this personal, and it doesn't matter how easily rectified this situation is. It has become a matter of principle. No one past the fast one on the great and powerful Trixie and gets away with it. Now then, my dear Raindrops, I need your help. Trixie has a plan.